Hello and welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger on September 24th, 2020. In front of the camera, you're looking at one of my favorite Batman villains of all time. That's right, this big fellow connect with tubes and muscles over him. This is Bane from Batman comics. This action figure in particular was from 1997, I believe, one of the older action figures in my collection. And even comparing to figures of today, he is still considered very large, very detailed, and really well done. He was from the Batman toy series, Legend of the Dark Knight. Now, I know back then a lot of people actually said this action figure, along with other figures in the same line, were too big. Uh, Actually, comparing to most figures today, he is not bad. He's really fitting in quite nicely with large figures of the current era. Obviously, articulation-wise, he's not up to date, but hey, if I'm only using them for display, I don't really care that much about the articulation. Also, uh, his poses, the few poses you can get him into, it's really not bad. And again, he is big. I believe back then he was only like $8. So why is Bane one of my favorite villains from Batman? Now, a lot of people who watched Batman Forever and the 1990 movies, 1980 movies, uh, remember Bane as this big, muscular, hulking, and rather stupid character. Basically, just a muscle bodyguard to Poison Ivy. However, those of us who know him from the comic book know that Bane is anything but a big, stupid guy. Bane was one of the very few characters who outsmarted Batman at a major level. He was one of the few characters that continuously coming back to haunt Batman, and every single time he returned, Batman gets really nervous around this guy with good reason. This is one of the very few characters who ever bested Batman on both the intellectual level and the physical level. I mean, he outsmarted Batman, and then he tracked down Batman and had a one-on-one fight with against Batman, like no fancy stuff, just fist fight, and he managed to break Batman's back in the Nightfall comic story arc. Yeah, he actually picked Batman up and just like broke his spine with his bare hand. I mean, this is Batman we're talking about. You know, like one of the best martial artists, one of the toughest human fighter in the DC comic world. And Bane just basically picked him up and broke him like he was nothing. Now, granted, Bane is not fighting fair because he is hopped up on some super steroid that's called Venom that made him essentially superhuman. But still, I mean, there were a lot of strong characters that Batman had faced down before. Amygdala and Killer Croc and Clayface and so on and so on, but none of them have managed to do that to Batman. But Bane got it done. Bane outsmarted Batman, figured out Batman's identity, and then single-handedly broke Batman's back, put Batman in a wheelchair. I just love that character. I just love the Bane's character because he's like one of the truly badass comic book villain. And he's not always a villain either. Sometimes he'll be in a kind of a mercenary or even do some good things because he is actually quite honorable when it comes down to it. Later, he actually ditched using the super steroid Venom and went back to just being a normal guy. But even as a normal guy, he's immensely strong, immensely skilled, and very, very smart. So even as a normal guy, he still gives Batman a really hard time. Now, this is obviously not a video about Bane, although one of these days we probably will do one just because I like this character so much. But we have Bane opening the show today because today I got something rather special for you guys. Today I'm going to give you a rundown of disabled action figures. This is like the Special Olympic. Uh, Personally, I always get a little bit offended with the whole Special Olympic concept. I think having a Special Olympic for those who are disabled is at the same time patronizing and demeaning. But that's just my own political view. We don't need to get into that right now. So, anyway, I am very interested. I've always been very interested in action figures that have disability, in characters that have disability. Anytime there's a cartoon, comic, movie character that is disabled and really badass, uh, I'm totally rooting for them. And anytime there's an action figure of a character that is disabled, I totally go out of my way to add them to my collection because, well, I mean, I'm biased. I have several disabilities myself, and I am pretty badass. So I like badass disabled characters and disabled action figures. And since Bane here was the only character ever that disabled Batman and put Batman in the wheelchair, I figure it is fitting for him to open today's little show and tell, the action figure special Olympic. Our first entry into today's special Olympic special show are also a pair of characters, also from the Batman comic. More specifically, this time, they're from the Batman Arkham Origin video game. And here they are. This is Mr. Hammer and Mr. Sickle. For those of you who are watching this and can't make out the details, Mr. Hammer and Mr. Sickle, they are both missing one arm. One is missing the left arm. Mr. Hammer is here, missing his left arm. And Mr. Sickle is here. He's missing his right arm. What's the story there? How come this guy is missing the arm? Well, Mr. Hammer and Mr. Sickle used to be conjoined twin, and they used to be strongmen and freak show in the Russian circus. And then later, they joined the gang led by the Joker, and Joker had a surgery performed on them to split them in half. So now there are two people, one missing a left arm, one missing a right arm. Just look at that. Look at the scar from the surgery. This is gruesome. Turning them sideways, you can see that they have these massive scars coming down the side of their torso where they were cut apart. So now they are both only have one arm. As you can see, that immensely muscular characters. Like the physique on these guys is incredible. And they even wear different outfit. Um, Mr. Hammer here, holding a big ass hammer in his right hand, obviously is a henchman of the Joker. Yeah, he got a clown face, clown out costume going on. Just look at the muscles on his back. Beautiful, beautiful sculpt. A lot of scars, a lot of muscles. Just overall, really good detail. And look at the sculpt on his feet. Those are some realistic looking feet on an action figure. All cracked and awful and chapped looking. And then there's his conjoined brother, Mr. Sickle. Mr. Sickle here's got a big machete in his left hand because he's missing his right hand, right arm. Look at that. Same super muscular upper torso. He got pouches around on his belt, like it's like a utility belt or something. And he's got some tattoos, a lot of scars. Fantastic, fantastic. For a pair of guys without arms, with a missing arm, they managed to rise up to work for two of the most notorious gangsters and bosses in the Batman's uh, uh, rogues gallery. Mr. Sickle worked for the Penguin, Mr. Hammer worked for the Joker. They are definitely counting as badasses in the disabled community. But that's just a beginning. We have more coming up. Next up, we have a couple of guys who's rather maimed and crippled. On the right, that little fellow on the right is Gore from the Total Chaos action figure series by Todd McFarlane. And on the left, this tall and gangly fellow is Junkrat from Overwatch Ultimates. Let's bring Gore forward first. Now, Gore has the distinct honor of being the rarest McFarlane action figure ever made. The reason being, when they were making this action figure, they suddenly realized that a small action figure like this probably would not sell very well, so they discontinued him before he was shipped to the mass market. I was very, very fortunate to get him before he was discontinued. A lot of people dislike this action figure, but I really like him, and this is why. This is a really deformed dwarf pirate guy. I mean, that you just can't get more unique than that in an action figure world. Look at him. Now, you look at this guy, you're thinking, well, he's like a small, really deformed, crippled guy. What's so badass about him? When Gore was alive, he was the most deadly pirate on Earth, sailing the seven seas with his pirate ship and his pet parrot. You can think of him as Blackbeard or Captain Hook. He was the baddest of the bad pirates in the whole world. But unfortunately, eventually his enemies caught up with him, they ambushed him, and they murdered the crap out of him. He died, but because of his fierce reputation, his body was later retrieved by the alien Accord to revive him so he could fight in the Total Chaos War. That is the backstory given to him by Todd McFarlane for the Total Chaos storyline. To me, this action figure just oozes coolness. I mean, even just look at even his parrot. Even his parrot is disabled. Half of the parrot's body is all gone. It's all robotic here on the left side. And you can see on the other side, the wing. That wing even have articulation. You can flap the wing. Yeah? I, I thought you could turn the head too, but I guess not. But look at that. That is half a parrot That is like so cool. That, so cool in a very gruesome way. And then look at Gore himself. He is he looked like someone dropped a building on him that smushed the heck out of him. You can see on his back the lumps and contusions and lesions that just like come out of his flesh. And his left arm is gone, replaced with this giant mechanical hook thing. Now he's Captain Hook for real. And then he also lost his right leg and then got a peg leg there. And that peg leg has a lot of spikes on it, and these are really sharp actually. Now on his right hip, you can see there's a little pistol there, and on his right fist, there's a brass knuckle going across his fist. And just look at how misshapen, how messed up his body. I mean, if we were talking about disabled action figure, I can't think of another action figure that is more mangled and disabled than this guy. Really, really cool. And when he is this disabled, even when his parrot is only half a bird, he can still go and fight in the total chaos war alongside alien warlords and killer rhinoceroses and murdering elephants. Yeah, that is one badass disabled pirate dude.
4 minutes past 11 a.m.
Yeah, never mind. Not sure what's that about.
The time is now 8 minutes past 11 p.m.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, hit the wrong button there. So next up we have Junkrat from the now very popular Overwatch video game, computer game. This is Junkrat is a whoa, he's falling over already. Okay, that's okay. Give a disabled guy a break. It's hard to stand when you only have one leg. Junkrat is an Australian salvager turned explosive expert and mercenary. Although I don't know how much of an expert he is when he's already lost one leg. Look at he got a peg leg there. He lost one leg, and he also lost his right arm. It seems have to be replaced with a prosthesis. He's a tall and very slender character with messy, spiky hair and ashes covering the top half of his face, like he had a bomb that just blew up in his face. This is a really interesting looking character. Right? Um, really good action figure, actually. I love the Overwatch action figure. He got a remote detonator in his hand. In his right hand, there's a grenade launcher. On his back, there's a huge motorized explosive device. Look at that. So in the game, what happens is this thing on his back in the game actually runs around all over the place, blowing people up. And it's like a remote drone kind of thing. And then he also have a landmine right here that also act as a base for his peg leg to go into to keep him standing. So a little bit like our Gore, this is a character. Junkrat is a character who has lost arm and leg and still keep on fighting. He's like uh, a mercenary, explosive expert kind of guy, and despite of obviously having had a few accidents, he continued to be a very noticeable part of Overwatch. So, yeah, got to give credit where credit due. This is one pretty badass, disabled, limping, gimpy person. Next up, from the world of Marvel Universe, we have a pair of characters that almost everyone would know them. First up, rolling up to the camera in his wheelchair is Professor Xavier, also known as Professor X, the leader of the X-Men superhero team. Charles Xavier grew up as a genius, researcher, uh, brilliant athlete, but after annoying alien warlord, the alien warlord dropped a huge rock on him, and from there on disabled his legs forever. But Charles Xavier did not let such a thing slow him down. Using his immense telepathic ability, he became one of the most powerful mutants in the world. I mean, this is a guy. This is a normal looking guy in a blue suit, sitting in a wheelchair, and yet he managed to become one of the most powerful mutants in the entire Marvel comic. His uh, telepathic ability, his ability to control other people's mind, to read other people's mind, to make things happen just with his mind alone, was astonishing. And on his head, he has his cerebral helmet, which even further amplifies his telepathic ability. Cerebral helmet, right here, fit right on my finger. There has been a few times during the comic that Professor X has gotten his ability to walk back, but those incidences didn't last long, and to date, he got to be like the most badass wheelchair-bound comic book character ever, even ranking above characters such as Batgirl. Next up, we have the character that is both really cool, but also it's a personal annoyance to me. But gotten he has gotten really popular in the last 10 years. This is, well, you know who this is. This is Daredevil, Matt Murdock. When he was just a child, Matt Murdock was on his way home from school when he was involved in an accident with a chemically loaded truck. And some of the chemicals splashed into his face, and from that day on, Matt Murdock became totally blind. But the chemical that made him blind also gave him his superhuman ability, gave him super hearing that was so acute that Matt Murdock could listen, and just by the sound of the air moving and the water hitting on different surfaces, he could tell what a person looked like if the person was standing in the rain. And he could hear a bullet coming and get out of the way. That's how crazy his superpower was. So when we talk about totally blind superhero, everyone automatically think of Daredevil. Murdock eventually learned how to fight from, well, he learned how to fight from his father, who was a very accomplished boxer, and then he also learned how to fight from a blind mercenary by the name of Stick. Okay, naming a blind character Stick is just wrong on so many levels. Okay, that's just like I'm not even going to go into that. That's just wrong. But anyway, Matt Murdock became Daredevil, and Daredevil became the most well-known totally blind superhero in the last 20 years because of a few movies and TV series he's been in. He is a medium-sized, very muscular character, wearing, I believe, it's mostly red and black outfit with a little horned devil's mask, and he also has a baton that he carries around to beat up the bad guys with, right here. He can carry it on his belt in a holster. Now this is where I want to stop a little bit and stop here at Daredevil and talk a little bit about why is it that I personally find Daredevil to be so annoying and pointless. I find him so annoying because me being a totally blind martial artist, almost everyone I speak to, I've spoken to, comparing me to Daredevil. Now, I know people think that is flattering, but to me, that is silly. Because to me, Daredevil, Daredevil's disability was really poorly handled by his creator. You see, you take away this guy's eyesight, what is the point of a disabled superhero? The point is you need to show us how he overcome his disability by hard work and determination, right? I mean that he keep falling over. I mean that would be a good comic. Seeing a guy who go blind and actually have to learn how to function blind and then overcome his blindness and becomes a superhero. To me, that would be a good inspiring uh, blind superhero. But rather than that, what they did was they took away his eyesight, but they give him a superpower that basically nullifies that disability. So what if he can't see? His hearing is so crazy that he can hear a bullet coming at him and dodge out of the way. That to me, it's like Daredevil can actually drive a car. That's something that every one of us who's blind cannot do. Daredevil can jump from rooftop to rooftop, uh, leaping uh, several story high buildings without needing to see, not because he practiced at it, but because he got such good hearing, he actually can use his hearing to see for him. So it's like they gave him a disability, but it's not a disability because his superpower compensated for it. So to me, Daredevil is not a good blind superhero. He's pretty badass, I'll say that, but uh, as far as being a disabled badass character, I think that is up to everyone to agree or disagree. Personally, I don't really think he's that badass as a disabled person because his superpower compensated for it. Moving on, last but not least, we have on the left in his purple and blue cloak. This is Lord Blacksworn from the Ultima Online computer game. I often say that if there's a role model, like if there's a pinnacle of the most badass disabled character, Darth Vader would be it. I mean, the guy is uh, all messed up and have to be on ventilator, and he can't survive without his armor and his life support system, and yet he's one of the most crazy strong character in the Star Wars universe. That alone is crazy and really badass. Now, I do not have Darth Vader to show you guys. Isn't that crazy? I still don't have a Darth Vader action figure, but I have someone who's almost the same. This Lord Blacksworn willingly donate his body so he could gain arcane power, so he could rule his kingdom and save his people. Lord Blacksworn started out as a good-hearted ruler, but eventually became corrupted and became the ultimate evil in the storyline. Look at this guy. Beautiful, beautiful cloak. On the right side of his body is more or less normal. You got that uh, regular armor, human arm, but then you turn him around and you can see his body is mostly gone. This is the guy who's on life support. Look at that tank on his back. That is like his life support system, just like Darth Vader. And he is bound to his armor, just like Darth Vader. And this guy doesn't even have legs anymore. If you look here under his garment, under his robe, his legs are gone. So this guy can't even walk. He's he gained the power to fly, but you know I imagine it's quite a drag, uh, literally speaking, to not be able to walk when you don't feel like flying. Now normally a figure like this wouldn't be able to stand, but he comes with a little clear display stand that you plug into his lower body, and this will keep him very stable. His left arm has been replaced with a huge mechanical prosthesis with a big mechanical claw and wires and tubes leading out of it. This is a guy without legs, missing one arm, and have most of his body replaced by machinery and is on life support. You don't get much more disabled than this guy. And yet, he managed to be the most threatening character in his universe. The ultimate tyrant, the ultimate emperor who ruled with magic and with steel. Yeah, almost as badass as Darth Vader, I would say. Last but not least, we have this little guy right here. I have him standing up on this little box so you guys can actually see him because he's really small. This little fellow, his name is Puck. Now Puck started out life as a perfect specimen of human toughness. He was 6 foot 6 inches tall, an accomplished martial artist and mercenary and super soldier, an adventurer. But one day, while on one of his adventures, he found an evil blade that would give him a lot of power. Upon holding onto the blade, he was attacked by the evil spirit called Black Razor. Black Razor then used his magic to transform Puck. He essentially turned Puck immortal and gave Puck superhuman abilities, but he shrunk Puck from a 6 foot 6 guy down to 3 foot 6. That is the guy you're looking at here. He turned Puck into a dwarf. Look how small this guy is. He's tiny. Like compared to my hand. Yeah, he's like half the size of my hand. And yet he's immensely muscular. Look at the muscles on this guy. He's like short but really wide and really strong looking. And he is very strong. Even though he's only 3 foot 6 inches tall, Puck managed to be one of the best hand-to-hand fighter in the entire Marvel comic universe. On top of that, he's nearly indestructible and he can lift up to 10 tons of weight. He is also immortal, and the one time that he actually got killed, Puck managed to defeat a demon lord in hell and took over being the demon lord himself on that level of hell and only returned to the human world to save his teammate. Oh yeah, speaking of his teammate, Puck is from the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight. So this short little guy is not only really cool, he's also Canadian. Woohoo for Canadian. Yeah. Now some of you might say, yeah, well he's small, but he doesn't count as a disabled person. Nothing wrong with him other than being small. Well, I don't know. I mean, to me, if someone was to shrink me down to 3 foot 6, I would definitely consider that a disability. Imagine just how hard it would be to do a lot of things that you have to do normally. So yeah, that's why Puck is included in our Special Olympic, even though he is not really disabled in a normal sense. But I believe just by being so tiny, that is a disability all on its own. Now, originally, I was going to include characters with mental disabilities as well, but then I realized that that would be silly because if we come down to it, probably two-thirds of Batman's villains and Spider-Man villains and any villains from comic books can be considered mentally challenged or mentally unstable or have all kind of mental uh, instability. So if we were to include them, we would have to stay here for the rest of the night. So I did not show anyone with a mental disability. All the disabilities have been shown on this video have been physical in one way or another. I also am regretful that I was unable to find a representative of someone who have hearing impairment. Uh, by the way, for those of you who follow the Marvel movies, the character Hawkeye in the comic book is actually deaf. They did not show that in the movie adaptation. So, unfortunately, I do not have an Hawkeye action figure, but if I did, Hawkeye would be a representative of the hearing impaired community. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night and stay safe.